And this is why I think mindset work is like the most beautiful gift that you could possibly ever give yourself. And not only are you going to sound more confident, but you're going to feel like more of you. You're going to feel more authentic. You're going to feel more congruent. And there's truly nothing better than sounding confident and speaking with such power and clarity because you are genuinely feeling it inside. There is nothing better than that.
Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Jess. I am a New York Times featured podcast host, a prior McKinsey consultant and corporate executive, and current career coach for women who work in a corporate or 9-to-5 role and who really want to create big success and have a really big impact in their careers. If you are looking to grow your confidence, become a super sharp, super powerful verbal communicator, and if you're someone who wants to elevate into leadership and prove to yourself that you can make a big splash and make a big impact in your career, you are in the perfect place because that is what we do on this show. And today we are talking about possibly one of the number one most important skills for fueling your professional success, and that is your verbal communication and your ability to be in conversations and express yourself and your thoughts and your ideas in a way that's clear, in a way that's concise, in a way that's powerful, in a way that's persuasive. I know that those things can feel really hard if you are someone who doesn't identify as being a naturally strong verbal communicator, but I want to reassure you that verbal communication is a skill that anyone can develop. And one of my goals on this show and in my work is really to make that simple for you. And today I'm going to be walking you through the number one most important thing for elevating your verbal communication. And this is something that most people overlook. And a lot of times, people get stuck when they're trying to improve their verbal communication, and they think that they're getting stuck because they're just really, really bad at verbal communication. And in fact, the true reason that they're getting stuck is because they're overlooking this very, very important component. And I'm going to tell you what it is in today's podcast episode. And we're going to talk about how to develop this skill within yourself so that your verbal communication can shine. I cannot wait to teach this and to dive in deeper with you. And before I do, I have a super important, exciting, and time-sensitive announcement, which is that I have opened up an extra cohort of my group program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy. So the last cohort filled up quickly. I didn't have much of a chance to advertise it more broadly. And so I decided to open up an extra cohort that is going to be kicking off in the end of March. And applications are going to be open March 13th through March 20th. Now, if it's your first time hearing about the Art of Speaking Up Academy, it is a program that's intended to help you become a more confident, compelling verbal communicator. It is an intimate, small group program where I take you through my own signature curriculum. It covers both the mindset work and the core communication skills that you need to be super impressive when it comes to your verbal communication. It is for women who know that being more vocal and being more polished is key to solidifying your reputation as a leader and ultimately helping you unlock your next level of professional growth. So mark your calendar. Enrollment will be open March 13th through March 20th. And in honor of doors opening, I am bringing back my number one most popular free training ever. This was a highly downloaded training, and I've gotten a ton of positive feedback on it. It is called 3 Steps to an Unstoppable Meeting Presence. It is an audio training, so you can listen on the go. And in it, I walk you through 3 very simple steps that you will want to follow in order to develop a super confident, articulate communication style. If you're in a place where you want to stop second guessing yourself and you really want to start communicating like a confident, powerful leader, this free training walks you through the skills that will help you make that happen. It is only available for the next couple of weeks in honor of the launch of my group program. So make sure that you get it today by clicking the link in the show notes or by going to jessguzikcoaching.com/free resources. And with that, let's get into the depths of today's episode, which I am so excited about. Today, we're talking about taking your professional development beneath the surface, which is what I do as a coach. And I am so passionate about doing deeper inner work in order to help you become more confident and become a stronger verbal communicator, because I have seen that the inner work and growing your mindset and growing your internal psychological resilience is far more powerful than even the most brilliant communication framework that you will find out there. Working on the inside, I have found, is just far more powerful than working just on the surface or on the outside. And that's really what we're diving into today. And I want to start by talking about a point of friction or a point of stuckness that I see a lot of people get into. And I'm going to explain why people get stuck there and what the solution to that is and what that looks like and how you can implement that solution to become more confident and effective in your verbal communication. So most people, when they're first wanting to become a better verbal communicator, they want to be more crisp, they want to be more polished, they want to sound more confident when they speak. They think about the words that they're saying and they think about, how can I express my idea clearly? How can I find the right words? How can I say this in a way that sounds smooth and articulate and super finessed? And that's a really natural place to focus, right? If we want our verbal communication to be better, it makes a ton of sense then that we would ask ourselves, how can I make the words better? What are the right words? What's the right way to share this? What's the best way to express this idea? And this is why people get so stuck, because this really feels like the answer. It feels like so much of the answer is just to understand how to say the words right and how to say it correctly. And while it is so important to know how to verbally express an idea really clearly, what I find is that people tend to then either completely miss or underestimate the role that mindset plays in your verbal communication. And in order to help you see how big a role mindset and self-confidence plays when it comes to the effectiveness of your verbal communication, I want to share an example with you. This is the example that I come back to always when I am doing my own mindset work. And this is how I understand and think about mindset work. So here's the example. I want you to think about the reporters and anchors that we see on the news, you know, the talking head type of people who are delivering the news to us when we're watching the news, right? And now they're talking verbally, words are coming out of their mouth, right? And you know, when you're watching the news, there's that ticker tape that runs across the TV, and usually it's sharing a stream of separate news. So you have the news anchor or the reporter, and they're talking about or reporting on something very specific. And then at the bottom, you have a separate stream of news that's written in text, and it's kind of scrolling down the bottom of the TV screen. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. I don't know what that is actually called, but that is such a good analogy for today's episode. So the way that I think about it is that our mindset is basically like the words that are streaming across the bottom of our TV on that scrolling ticker tape. So the way that I think about verbal communication and how mindset fits in is when we're talking, there are words and sentences coming out of our mouth. But while we are talking, we are also experiencing an inner monologue in our heads. And that inner monologue is not the same as the words that are coming out of our mouths. The thoughts that we're thinking in our mind as we're speaking are different, right? Unless you have zero filter And unless the world is hearing you say every thought that runs through your mind, then we really have two separate train tracks that we're talking about, right? There's the words you're saying out loud, and then there's the thoughts you're thinking in your head. And I like to think about it this way. It's as if you're a news anchor, and whenever you speak, there's a ticker tape at the bottom of the TV screen, and that ticker tape represents the thoughts that you are having as you are speaking. So it's not a transcription of the words you're saying out loud. It's a transcription of the thoughts that are happening in your mind while you're speaking. Now, for many people, there are a lot of really negative thoughts on that ticker tape. And so many people aren't even highly aware of it, right? So even just building their awareness that they're having lots of thoughts while they are speaking is enormously useful for their growth and for their self-awareness. But then when you actually look at the thoughts and you look at what's written on that ticker tape, you will often find that it is highly negative, and you might notice that you're having thoughts like, I sound stupid, why am I saying this in such a convoluted way? My audience looks bored, I don't think my boss is impressed by what I'm saying. I think everyone in the room probably already knows this. People are thinking that what I'm saying is so obvious, no one understands it, it doesn't make sense to anyone. I don't sound confident, I don't like the way my voice sounds, I feel like maybe people can see that I'm nervous, and that ticker tape just keeps going and going and going with all of those negative thoughts. And what is so important to understand if you're someone who wants to be able to express yourself confidently and powerfully and authentically, what is so important to understand is that the thoughts on that ticker tape have an enormous impact on the words that come out of your mouth. So while I said before that the thoughts that are on the ticker tape are different than the words that come out of your mouth, right? And you're not verbally saying every thought you're thinking. Thank goodness we're not, right? That would be a bit too much, right? But even though they don't match, the thoughts that you're experiencing and the words on that ticker tape that is scrolling basically across your mind as you're speaking has an impact on the words that you are saying out loud. And most people underestimate the impact of that relationship, and they don't recognize that their mindset plays an enormous role when it comes to the quality and potency of their verbal communication. When your ticker tape is filled with a scrolling series of negative, harsh, self-critical, judgmental thoughts, it impacts your outward verbal communication in so many different ways, not just in one way, but in many different ways. And I want to tell you what they are because this is the most powerful shift that you can make. The first way that it impacts your verbal communication is that when you're thinking negative thoughts about yourself, that makes you feel bad inside. And when you feel bad inside, that emotion and that feeling state is often reflected through the sound of your voice. Our mood and how we're feeling internally, it comes out in our voice. And when we're being really hard on ourselves psychologically, and when that ticker tape is really, really negative, we don't sound as confident. We don't sound as alive and as present in the moment because we're feeling a lot of negative feelings as a result of all those thoughts that we're having while we are speaking. So that is the first impact, which is that we are not going to sound as sure of ourselves and as confident in our tone of voice. Another huge impact, and this is like such a big one, this changed the game for me so much, is that this ticker tape and these negative thoughts impact how quickly we recover from mistakes and fumbles and imperfections in our verbal communication. This is so important. If we fumble, or if we start talking and it's not coming out the way we want it to come out, or if we start talking and we notice our voice is shaking, that's something that I experience. If that happens and then we start thinking highly negative, highly self-critical thoughts about ourselves, like, oh my gosh, why did you say it that way? That sounded so stupid. People can see how nervous you are. if we start going down that path and that ticker tape becomes really negative, we will spiral down and we will fumble more. It will be very hard for us to recover from the fumble, whatever the fumble is, whether we say a word wrong, whether we explain something in a way that wasn't super effective, right? Whether the confidence is waning from our voice, whatever it is we do that we don't like, if we start to pile negative thoughts on top of that, it's going to be really hard for us to recover from that and come back to confidence. So that's the second way that our mindset and that ticker tape impacts our verbal communication. The third way it impacts our verbal communication, and listen, this feels like magic when you really make this mindset shift and tap into this. But the third way that it impacts our verbal communication is that when we're being really self-critical of ourselves as we're speaking, it shuts down our creativity, it shuts down our critical thinking, and it makes it really difficult for us to access our best level of thinking and therefore to come up with strong ways to express our ideas verbally. When we're being highly negative, we don't have access to our best thinking and our best presence that is going to help us articulate ourselves smoothly and clearly. And I want to contrast this with the opposite and what happens when we're actually able to encourage ourselves as we are speaking. And when we have a strong, resilient mindset that we take with us everywhere we go and to all the places where we have to speak up and use our voice. So when we learn to change what's on that ticker tape, and when we learn to shift from, you sound awful, this doesn't sound good, no one likes you, nobody likes your ideas, what you're sharing is obvious, no one wants to hear from you, you're not smart enough to be in this room. When we shift from that to something like, wow, you're doing great, look how courageous you are, I'm so proud of you, it's so brave of you to speak in this room, I love how you're sharing this idea, you're so powerful, you're finally stepping into the spotlight and speaking up, look at you. When we shift to that has a positive impact on our verbal communication. And we start to sound more confident in the tone of our voice. And we start to recover from fumbles more quickly because we don't feel so bad about them and so negatively about them. And we also have access to more presence and more creative thinking, which helps us express ourselves more smoothly, more organically, more powerfully, and more authentically. So when we try to just improve our verbal communication only by focusing on what's at the surface and only by focusing on the words we're saying and not focusing on the words in the ticker tape and not focusing on our mindset, what we're trying to do is we're basically trying to speak effectively on the outside, sound confident, sound sharp, sound solid on the outside without having the inside match. We're trying to speak powerfully on the outside, fueled by an inside that is not powerful at all, that is stuck in self-criticism, that is in a place of negativity. And that incongruence makes it not just difficult for us to communicate effectively and to sound confident, but it makes it difficult for us to find authentic confidence in our verbal communication, right? Because if we want to not just sound confident, but sound confident in a way that's authentic, that has to come from the inside. We can't manufacture that from the outside. It has to come from within us. And when it comes from within us and what we're thinking and how we're feeling, then our words and the tone of our voice is not just going to be more effective and more confident, but it's going to be more true to who we are. It's going to be more real. It's going to have more of us in it. And this is why I think mindset work is like the most beautiful gift that you could possibly ever give yourself, because by shifting from this negative way of treating yourself and being really harsh on yourself to this much more supportive, encouraging inner monologue, not only is your verbal communication going to get sharper, and not only are you going to sound more confident, but you're going to feel like more of you. You're going to feel more authentic. You're going to feel more congruent. And there's truly nothing better than sounding confident and speaking with such power and clarity because you are genuinely feeling it inside. There is nothing better than that. And listen, it's a process, right? To cultivate this internal state of strength, this internal resilience, to have your own back and encourage yourself when you're stepping into the spotlight and it's vulnerable and you're trying to speak and people are listening. It takes time. It takes effort. It's not like a switch that you just flip and then all of a sudden you're amazing at it. It's an internal psychological muscle that you build over time, but it is so worth it because it helps you perform better. It helps you speak better, but it just also helps you be more of you. And I just feel like, especially as women, there are so many ways where we basically run into this idea that to perform better, we have to abandon ourselves. We have to be less of ourselves. We have to be someone we're not. And I feel like we really experience that a lot in corporate, where we're constantly, at least in my corporate career, I felt this, and I know so many of my clients feel this, we're constantly getting caught in this push-pull between like, do I want to be myself or do I want to be respected? Do I want to be myself or do I want to be more of an authority? And the reason that I love working on mindset with my clients and helping women find this internal strength is because as you find it, you stop having to choose, right? You find a source of confidence within yourself that not only helps you be more effective when you communicate and be more effective in your day-to-day at work, but that also feels like you and helps you genuinely feel better inside. There's no trade-off that you have to make between I can be myself or I can be an authority, but I can't be both. It's literally a win-win where you're stepping into more of you, more of who you are, and more confidence and more effectiveness in your verbal communication. This is what helped me the most in my corporate career more than anything else because I could finally just focus on the work. When you're showing up as you and you're being authentic, you're freed up to actually focus on what's in front of you and focus on leading and solving problems and doing really, really solid execution. And so my takeaway for you is that if you want to be a stronger verbal communicator, make sure you're not just focused on the outside surface level stuff. That stuff does matter. Like it really does matter to know how to speak to executives, to know what to say to them, to know how to address them, to know how to structure your thoughts in a way that's executive friendly, in a way that's persuasive, in a way that's going to land really well with your manager. Those surface level frameworks and tactics, they're very important. I do a lot of that stuff with my clients, but you want to make sure that you are also looking at the inside and you're looking at what you're thinking and feeling while you are communicating, and you're working to shift that internal experience to one that is more encouraging, more positive, more forgiving, more self-adoring. Because ultimately you have to find that adoration for yourself and that radical encouragement and radical self-support in order for you to learn to find strength and confidence during the really hard, stretchy moments that you encounter. Just because the situation is hard for you and it feels scary and you feel vulnerable, that doesn't mean that you can't be a confident verbal communicator in that situation. All that means is that you're going to need a stronger mindset to help you be a confident verbal communicator in that situation. That's why it is so powerful to work on the inside in addition to the outside. So I hope that one thing that you take away from this is that verbal communication is something that anyone can get good at because we are all capable of cultivating internal strength and internal resilience. There is literally no such thing as someone who cannot get psychologically stronger. It is possible for all of us. It is possible for you. And I really encourage you to focus on doing it because it will not just change your career path, but it will change your life to find that inner sense of strength and peace and confidence. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. As you can tell, I love this topic so much. It is so freaking close to my heart, and it is really at the core of all of the work that I do with my clients. This is at the center of everything, helping you have a more resilient, stronger mindset that ultimately fuels your voice and fuels your verbal communication. And if you're feeling like you are ready to go deeper in developing that and you want to build those internal psychological foundations that you need to become an excellent and super confident verbal communicator, that is something that you're going to get to work on in depth inside the Art of Speaking Up Academy. One of the most powerful things about the Art of Speaking Up Academy curriculum is that it combines two things that are rarely combined together in other programs, but that need to be combined together in order to facilitate your growth. And those two things are tactical verbal communication frameworks paired with internal mindset work. The frameworks are what help you know how to express your thoughts clearly and persuasively, but the mindset work is what helps you feel strong and solid and confident inside and helps you have positive, encouraging words on the ticker tape that's running through your mind so that when you step into the spotlight, you feel strong and therefore you communicate in a way that's super strong. If that is an outcome that you want to create, I want to invite you to join me in the next cohort. Like I mentioned, enrollment is going to open March 13th through March 20th. And if you want to get a taste of my work and get started on your journey of building confidence and developing an unstoppable communication style, I want to invite you to download my free audio training, 3 Steps to an Unstoppable Meeting Presence, which guides you through the 3 skill sets and 3 areas of competency that are really going to serve you in developing a crisp, compelling voice in the room. You can grab that by heading to jessguzikcoaching.com/free resources or by clicking the link in the show notes. Thank you for being here. This was such a pleasure to record, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.